welcome back to the Micro Advice Podcast. Today, our spotlight is on Catalyst, one of the hottest customer success platforms on the market that provides CSMs the means to mobilize their customers, measure satisfaction, and grow their business. To learn more about the exciting endeavors on which Catalyst has embarked so far, we're here today with Head of Customer Success, Sydney Strader. Sydney, I'm so excited to speak with you today.
Jim, the feeling's mutual. Thank you so much for having me.
This is great. Hey, Sydney, so last time when we spoke, we had talked a lot about how Catalyst employs some very unique marketing tactics like NPS I Love You podcast and other informative surveys that address some interesting and very unique topics in the CS world, such as around mental health in the workplace and others. Catalyst is really generating a ton of great content and excitement in the customer success world. So, first, can you talk a little bit about how does Catalyst provide a best-in-class experience for customer success managers and their teams?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first off, shout out to Mike Roberts and Ben Wynn on our marketing team. Those two are absolute powerhouses, and it is
Rockstar.
so refreshing every single day to just have the opportunity to work with them. I'm always amazed and then not, shocked at the incredible work that they come up with. So the NPS I Love You, all of the different materials that they've published, it's definitely been impressive to work with them over these last 4 months. In terms of why we're focused where we're focused and what we're bringing to teams, I mean, I think at the core, we just hold ourselves to an incredibly high bar. We are very passionate about the product itself and know that there's a big gap in the market that needs to be filled. For myself, being in customer success for 10 years, I can definitely have empathy for the pain that I've endured personally as a CSM, that I know many of my peers in the space have endured, in terms of you're pulled in every which direction. All you want to do is to be able to focus, to have an impact, what requires what action when, to be able to
Right.
achieve that is a little overwhelming and difficult to kind of operationalize and systematize. And so to be able to have a tool at your access that really just centralizes all of that critical information that you need about your customer to help inform the actions you need to be taking, saves you a ton of time, allow you to focus your efforts in areas that are going to have the most value and impact for your customers. On the practices side, I think that's another piece. It's such a unique opportunity to run customer success or be part of a customer success team that serves customer success professionals for a company that produces a customer success product. We always joke about how meta that is, but really the bar is exceptionally high because the audience that you're serving are professionals in your space. And so we really strive to bring unique experiences that we know are going to truly differentiate ourselves from the other, competitors in the market in terms of the experience they bring. And the bar that we kind of uphold ourselves to measure whether we are successful in that or not is if our customers are coming to calls, not just in the context to learn from our team in terms of how they can get more value from Catalyst, but they want to actually see what a best-in-class implementation manager is, or best-in-class support, or best-in-class customer success manager, and then take whatever tidbits they got from us and go and replicate that as their standard for their team. That's ultimately what we're striving for. We definitely feel like replication is the greatest form of flattery. So it's just a bar and a vision that we have for ourselves that really pushes us day in and day out, which is exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it seems like in order to keep raising that bar and continue to maintain or become more and more best in class, you are capturing feedback from the customer, making it better. So what is your process for that? How do you capture and incorporate feedback, into the platform that directly meets customer needs as they're maybe evolving over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different channels by which we do that. If we talk about feature requests, I think this is one of the workflows that I'm most proud of. As someone in customer success, you're always on the front lines and you're hearing feedback from our customers day in and day out. And you really play such a critical role in translating that information back to other teams internally so that they can really put their best foot forward and align between what their focus and attention is and what customers are saying their pain points are and the needs that they have. So one process that we introduced was through Catalyst submitting a feature request note. What I love most about it is that the product team actually created the script for information in which they wanted. So oftentimes, I've experienced where there's a lot of friction between CS and product because feature request in the direction of product, but they're not getting it in a way that's consumable and actionable on their end. So what we said is hey, product team, we'd absolutely love for you to kind of templatize what is the information that you would love us in customer success to gather from you, from our customers for you, so that when these feature requests are coming in your direction, you're not kind of wrapping your head around what the heck they're asking for. You actually are like able to hit the ground running and truly, action from there. So I think that that's definitely a big one that I'm super passionate about. The other is, introducing customer feedback in everything that we're doing. I think a recent example with Victoria on our support team was great. We recently launched Zendesk as our new support tool. And, with the best of intentions, we in customer success can sit in our Zoom rooms and like hypothesize around what the best customer experience is. But really, we took our hypothesis and then brought that to the front lines. And our customers gave us really insightful information, particularly around how we structured knowledge-based articles that would actually make them intriguing to engage with. Obviously, the intention of creating knowledge-based articles is for it to be self-serve, for customers to be able to do that. We were able to get feedback from customers that said, you know what, we need to drop that like video clip down to 2 minutes because that's the max I'm going to spend on it. So now we know that that's the bar. If we're publishing a video as part of our knowledge base, it needs to be under 2 minutes for it to be effective and consumable by our customers. So introducing that in the day-to-day routine of what we're putting out there, and not just assuming it's going to work, not just assuming it's going to be what's best for the customer, and really getting their feedback to be that final point of validation before we officially ship and then measure for impact.
That is fantastic. I love the idea about having product, templatize some of these add-ons. That's a process I've fallen victim to myself, working in customer success and trying to work with product and also make the client happy and go back and forth and serve as that conduit. That was a great idea, and I'm sure has sped up the process for getting some of these enhancements into the product. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other piece that is really a new muscle that we're starting to flex a little bit more is when we're having conversations with these customers who are super interested in, these feature requests that they're submitting, asking if they want to be part of a beta, asking them if they would like to be part of discovery. Our product team does a phenomenal job getting in front of customers as they're building the product and the vision for what it is we're going to build. So to not just accept it as like, okay, one and done feature request, great, it's submitted. It's like, would you like to be a part of the development of this feature? And you also gauge like how invested the customer is actually in the
right.
feature request that they've asked for. Is this like an absolute critical must have? And they were like, I will absolutely invest as much information and knowledge as I can to help inform you in building something that I wholeheartedly need. Or is this like, actually, it's not worth my time to give you feedback, and therefore it's probably like just a nice to have and icing on the cake versus the core of the cake itself.
Yeah, that is great and a good way to encourage that customer ongoing participation. Hey, so Sydney, I want to move a little bit to the people side. How does Catalyst up-level CS teams to deliver a consistent experience across their customer base? And then, if you can think of any, are there any headwinds to achieving this?
Yeah, I mean, this one's a super interesting one. When we sell to a customer, oftentimes the feedback is like, in our organization, we've got some CSMs who are killing it, the great experience, they're on top of their notes, we, have context on their accounts, we have a good handle on the health. And then, there's others where we're just it's a black box. We're not quite sure. There's inconsistency in where notes are being taken. It's causing friction across the organization. So I think for us, a big thing that we've introduced, and Diana and Kyle from Catalyst customer success team get full credit for this innovative idea, was any new customer that comes on board with us, we ask to interview the top CSM to go share with us a day in the life. Where do you focus your time and attention? Why do you prioritize what you prioritize? What is the impact of what it is that you prioritize? What are the headwinds you incur in your day-to-day? Where are you least efficient? Where are you most efficient? And what we're trying to do is just understand their world. What's working, what's not. And also knowing that, the executive sponsor who we're working with has acknowledged this person as like the gold star. What we want to be able to do is then incorporate those insights and learnings throughout their onboarding experience, so that every dashboard, every template, everything we're helping them orchestrate in what they're building is actually up-leveling the entire customer success team on the basis of this individual and their day-to-day expertise of how they're operating within the role in that organization, because every organization is unique. So I would say that's one, area that I'm so proud of, like Diana and Kyle, for saying like, okay, here's the problem, here's a solution, let's introduce this. And it's awesome as well Because down the road, what ends up happening is we incorporate that CSM in the launch to their peers. And I think we can all attest to, like, when a peer is coming at us with like, hey, I met with this team, gave them all this feedback, this is how we've built it to make our lives easier. It's a lot different than being pushed from the top down to be like, use this tool for your notes moving forward and how you prepare for your customer calls, et cetera. So it definitely helps to have that ingrained advocacy when we go to roll out more broadly to the team as well. From a headwind standpoint, definitely time and scale, I would say, are like my two biggest challenges. One is like, for me, one of the most critical pieces, going back to what I was speaking about in terms of like customer success at Catalyst being the bar for customer success in the industry, is like, how do you, one, define that bar? How do you evaluate candidates for that bar in the interview process? And then how do you like train them and hold them accountable to that bar throughout their time at Catalyst as well? So it really is focusing on standardizing that operational system and to be able to have that as like a very clear, transparent process for everyone involved, and also let people know what they're signing up for. I think if we look at the Catalyst customer success team, these are all folks that want to be at that bar. They want to challenge themselves to get there, and having that attitude is immensely helpful. And then all of it will be, put under pressure from a scale perspective. We're going to probably double in size in terms of the customer success team this year when we end 2021. And, oftentimes in the industry, I think we can all attest to how accounts change hands, right? And it's not ideal situation, but it is inevitable as we try to, make the levers work in terms of optimizing books and geographies and all of that fun stuff. But one thing that's the most disruptive and that I've heard from customers over and over again is like, I have to get used to a new person. I have to give them all of the contextual history that I maybe had with my previous CSM that I don't have now. And that is totally acceptable and understandable in terms of why that's the sentiment that they have. But I think there are two critical things that can be done to achieve that. One is like the actual transition in and of itself. So we actually recently went through this on our team where we created a template, and it was very explicit in terms of all of the information that needed to be transferred from the former CSM to the new CSM to set that new CSM up for success and deliver the best experience. But the second thing is, if you standardize the overall experience that your CSMs are delivering, irrespective of which CSM you're getting, consistency in their method and their model, and that's less disruptive as a customer to be on the incoming receiving end of that experience. Yes, you're going to get a new face, but how they deliver what they deliver, there's a lot of gains I think that could be made in customer success that haven't previously been done from my experience to help minimize that disruption.
That's great. I love the mindset and the feeling of experimentation, where you had mentioned Kyle and Diana had suggested something, and then you ran with it. And then the other piece of that is what's coming out of this that I heard was a template and some sort of documented, consistent process. I'm a huge advocate of that. I think that's great, Sydney, because unless something, and you don't want to get bogged down in this, and my agile colleagues would probably get on my case for saying this, but unless something's truly documented and you can see in a templatized or list form, it's really hard to replicate and scale and make consistent as the team grows. So that's fantastic.
Totally. And I think you get so much more lift by making that investment, even if I look at like the growth and maturity document that I've put in place for each member, so that like if they're, at a CSM level, 2 today, what does it look like to get to a CSM level 3 at a senior CSM or senior implementation manager? And, it's awesome for me to be able to have that conversation and give them coaching, but it's also an amazing opportunity for them to have autonomy over their own growth and development. And like this document does the lift for me in a lot of ways, in the sense that like if someone's taking seriously them evolving and growing and maturing to the next level, like they will be looking at that routinely, and they will have self-assessed themselves of like, how am I doing relative to communication? How am I doing relative to customer experience? How am I doing in these areas without, me having to be there every single step of the way? Obviously, I want to invest significantly in terms of coaching and feedback and their growth, but I think it's a two-way street in terms of our own development, and to standardize that, document it, and have transparency. I think there's an amazing opportunity, autonomy, and run with it in their own development as well.
That's fantastic. Hey, so I've heard it on this show before, lived a part of it myself, and in various discussions, this has come up. Those who nail the onboarding process, start off on the right foot, that's really what it takes to provide a good quality experience. So with that, how do you measure customer health coming out of onboarding?
Yeah, so this is actually, it's like perfect timing because I would say this was a critical focus in my first quarter at Catalyst. So I'm 4 months in. We just like concluded my first start to end quarter, and how do we measure health was one of the critical questions that we were looking to evaluate. And so the first piece we started with, like, what is Catalyst and what is Catalyst attempting to do from a value perspective? And at the core, we are a workflow tool, right? We are here to optimize the efficiency and transparency of information as it relates to customers within an organization. And so we asked ourselves, well, what does it require in order for that to be achieved? And when we looked at it, we're like, first of all, you have to have your entire customer success team in Catalyst, using Catalyst in the capacity that it's meant for. So on a metric standpoint, we're looking at, okay, if you have 15 CSMs, are 15 CSMs actively using Catalyst? So that's one component of how we're measuring health. The second component is, okay, knowing we're a workflow tool, knowing, Camilla on your team is only in once every 5 days is not conducive to showing that this is a workflow tool. We all know in customer success that the day does not go by where we're not on calls with customers, taking notes, actioning activities that we need to do, or developing a success plan, taking action on past calls that we've had. So on average, at a 5 days of the week, how many days are these active users actually in Catalyst? We're striving for 5 to 5. That to us is an indication that we are a core workflow tool. And the third component is sentiment. So knowing that those three components are, in fact, over the entire duration of our customer journey, right from the day that they start with us onwards and upwards from there, when we look at onboarding specifically, that's where we're introducing that measure as an output of onboarding in and of itself. So we'll have an official launch call. We will train the team, get them kicked off on Catalyst. And then 2 weeks after that, we will do a post kind of launch retro, if you will. And we will pull up those metrics and we will go, okay, you've got 10 CSMs. How many of your 10 are in here? Great. We've got 9. One individual who's being naughty. What's the deal there? And then of those 9 that are in there, how many days of the week are they actively in there? Okay, they're only in there 4 of the 5 days. So we still have some motion to move into to ensure that this is a core day-to-day tool that they're leveraging. So where do we have some gaps? And then sentiment is like, if your renewal was tomorrow, would you renew? And if it's a yes, then it's like, we're in good shape. If it's a no, then we have some work to do. And the question is, what do we need to do to change things in order for that to be a yes? So that's how we're measuring it. I think one piece, and this is like the benefit of the holidays and just like having some time to come down from the crazy, is I was like, I've never seen a customer success team actually exposed to their customers what their health is. Like on the inside, we talk about like, are you a red? Are you yellow? Are you green? Like, what is your score in terms of health? But we don't actually expose to customers like, this is what we define as a healthy customer. You've got all of your CSMs in there. They're in there 5 out of 5 days a week. And you're telling me that you would renew if your renewal was tomorrow. So that's something we're going to introduce now moving forward in onboarding, in that post kind of onboarding retro that I spoke about. And then at every engagement throughout, whether it's the monthly check-in, whether it's the quarterly business reviews, to really keep customers on the same page as us as to what health looks like. And ideally, we're all striving to be in the green, to be healthy, that their team, our team is enabling them to have all of their customer success team, and then ideally other functions within their business in Catalyst 5 out of 5 days a week, and that they, are getting full value, and they definitely want to be a long-term customer of ours.
Wow, that's insightful. That is a really good plan. So, Sydney, do you have a few more minutes for a couple more questions?
Yeah, of
This
course.
is great.
Go for
Okay,
it.
I love the energy. I love the excitement and the insight. So, after I think coming out of 2020, a lot of us, at least myself, are looking to the future of what's going to happen over the next couple of years. From your perspective, what does the future of customer success look like? What does CS teams need to focus on in the next maybe year or two to provide a unique and differentiated experience to their customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to see it, and I think, quite frankly, the world of 2020 really accelerated us in the right direction of customer success being integral to a business. But I've seen it, I've heard it, I've been part of organizations where they're like, yeah, like this customer success function. I think everyone understands wholeheartedly that the ability to retain customers, to invest in the health of your customers, to ultimately fuel the growth long term of your business is absolutely critical. So I think that that's something as we look in the future, we'll laugh one day that that was even a discussion, that there had to be like an argument made for it, and that's going to be just understood and known and never contested moving forward. So I think that's a big piece.
Yeah.
I think, just customer success, not only being like respected within an organization, but moving to the center of an organization, where every team sees CS as the conduit to get the information that's most critical for their success in their respective roles. So if you think of like the feature request process that we talked about, with product, right? Product is playing with fire if they're not engaging with the customers, not taking the influence of the customer's voice, not, partaking in conversations with them to dig deeper and understand in discovery capacity what their pains are, what their day-to-days are. And so I think that customer success continues to hold more weight in terms of what they can bring to those respective departments. The same thing with sales, right? Sales, with the best of intentions, sells these deals. Ultimately, they are then in the hands of CS. Well, sales can't learn anything from the deals that they've sold, the types of customers that are or are not successful, if customer success doesn't have an incredibly tight partnership with them. So I think that will be another critical piece of this, is customer success will move to the center. Departments will orbit around in partnership with customer success to make sure that they are truly delivering the best that they can in a centralized capacity for their customers. And I just think, customer success as a whole is also like quite complicated, right? I get on calls all the time with different customer success leaders, and you're starting to hear some consistency in the narratives of what they're seeing and the practices that they're implementing. But it's also a lot of like jack of all trades and, experimentation and not yet standardization. And I think that's just a maturity of the function as a whole. Even, we're looking for senior CSMs right now, and it's actually kind of difficult to find folks that have multiple years of significant experience in the field. And I think that just, speaks to customer success being relatively new as a function in itself. So I think the maturity of the disciplines, the simplicity will come from that and standardization. But I think right now everyone's in a very much a high experimentation mode, trying to see what sticks and standardizing what's best for their business. And I think that will become more clear in terms of what the themes are organization to organization over time.
That's great. And this is an exciting time to be in this particular industry or this particular function, because there is that opportunity to take a bunch of great practices and then grow and scale and make them consistent. And I feel like that's where the exciting kind of the rubber hits the road, where you have these good practices that are happening. Now, how you make them great, and what are the different tactics you can implement to help make them great. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Cindy, do you have any tips or tricks or maybe some light things that founders can do right from the start to provide a great customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds simple, but just making it a priority and talking about it, right? To set the tone and the expectation that is a priority, and that is a North Star for the business. I had the fortune of connecting with someone who was partnered with us through our investors company called Fire Hydrant. And they're like, Sid, we're super early, but we feel like we need to make an investment in customer success. Like, where do we start? When should we do it? And I was like, this is awesome. Like the fact that you are literally like in, starting to hit the ground in terms of the company building itself up, but you want to prioritize customers from the get-go, I think is most critical. And so just knowing that you've got two co-founders who hold, leadership roles in the organization, that are setting the tone for sales, for product, for the future CS peaks, people that join their team, to just exude that is a priority, that is meaningful and important to the company, and that needs to be a North Star, I think is a great starting point. I think as well, is just, as a early founder in a company, you have such a unique opportunity to stay very close with customers as they join. And these customers are special customers because they're ready to experiment. They're willing to take a bet. They're willing to put their name on the line to try something that isn't proven versus going with the technology that has years of experience, years of customers that they've worked with, et cetera. So company, it's also a value prop for these customers to know that they're going to be integral in helping influence the experience that ultimately leads to the overall delivery across that organization. So I think that, talking about it, making it a priority, being consistent in that drumbeat, and that expectation of everyone in the organization is exactly what small startups that are just kicking it off the ground need to do. And quite frankly, what existing organizations probably need to change their drumbeat too, if they aren't doing so already as well.
I love your focus on consistency. It's something I'm personally always thumping the table on is trying to say, we got to make this consistent. We got to make this consistent. That's fantastic. That just thrills me to death. Sydney, last question. So what does growth look like to you over the next 3 to 5 years? And by that, I'm thinking Catalyst or maybe even the profession within Catalyst.
Yeah, I mean, growth looks exciting. I think it's always fun to learn and grow and to challenge yourself and take yourself to new levels and overcome any of the kind of rougher waters that you meet along the way. I think for me, though, growth stems from the effort that you put into it. And one of the things that I really pride myself on and making sure, I hold my team accountable to is them asking customers for feedback along the way. I think so often, I've seen in the teams that I've managed, they're like, hey, Sid, can you listen to a call and can you give me feedback? And I absolutely can. And I love it. And I will do that all day, every day. I very much enjoy it. But what really matters most is you asking the same question you're asking me to your customers, right? They're on the receiving end of, the conversation that you just had with them. They were on the receiving end of the QBR that you delivered, and having the, kind of presence, if you will, to take a moment, take a pause at the end of that conversation and go like, how was that call for you? What was valuable? Where did we miss the mark? What could I bring to the table next time that would really blow your socks off? Every single day, customers are chomping at the bit to give you feedback. And I think CS folks need to really lean in to asking their customers for that feedback to continue to up level and, grow and develop. I used to, every, intro call I had with a customer, I'm like, who's the best CSM that you've ever worked with? And then I was like, tell me what they did. And then tell me what they didn't do so I can be better than them. And it wasn't from like a competitive standpoint. I just wanted to see how high their bar could go and see whether I could meet it. But I ended up growing and developing in terms of the experience that I wanted to deliver them. So I think there's tons of growth and tons of opportunity to further develop when you put customers in a position to help kind of shape that vision for you and then challenge yourself to see if you can meet it.
And that's great and super insightful. Sid, so just curious, what are some of the things you heard whenever people gave feedback on these are the
Mm-hmm.
best things that a CSM did?
Yeah, there were definitely some themes. So responsiveness was one of the most critical things. When customers are writing you, it's because they need help, and often it is like there's a level of urgency to it. So that was definitely one of the common themes. Two, they wanted to know what they didn't know. So they really wanted to lean on me to bring to the table insights, learnings, whether it was in the industry, whether it was other customers, whether it was the product itself, that they were not aware of, that if they were aware of, they would get more value from the partnership. So I would say that was definitely another critical piece. A third theme was transparency. Like they just wanted to be honest, whether it was, conversations around commercials, whether it was, hey, we're not going to build that feature request and here's why, or like we're heading in this direction as a company, because they just wanted context and they wanted to felt like they were brought along as part of the process and not blindsided consistently. So I would say those are the top three, probably most consistent themes that I got from customers. And I think the third piece in particular was where I probably latched on early in my career of how critical it was that I built cross-functional partnerships, because I couldn't be transparent with customers if I didn't have a broader perspective on what was actually happening across the organization. So I really wanted to position myself to be able to bring as much insight, as much context, as much information as possible to customers. And the only way I could do that was partnering up with other cross-functional groups so that I had an understanding of their world, their day-to-day, and why they were making the decisions that they were making. And, I think particularly in product where there's oftentimes some friction, you can be like the best defense, if you will, for product if you have the context and the information. Saying no to a customer is totally okay. In fact, customers are like, please tell me no, but I need context as to why that's a no so that I know what I'm trading off and what the future is looking brighter for as a result of it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sid. This has been a fantastic session. I love your knowledge, your insight, your excitement. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. It was great connecting.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening. If you want to connect with Sid or myself, I will add our contact information in the box below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, drop a comment, ask a question, and be sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Have a great week. See you right back here next week, same place, same time. Bye-bye.